Hi, it's Christina again, and I'm talking to you from Cat Street in the middle of Harajuku. Thanks so much for all of your comments and all of your views and everything, and I hope I'll be able to answer all of your questions in the upcoming episodes. Today I'd like to tell you guys about my experiences in Japanese language schools in Japan, because a lot of you guys seem to be interested in what it's like to do that. What a lot of people don't know is that if you go to Japanese language school, the school you will go to will help you to get a visa. If you come to Japan just to visit, you can only stay up to 90 days in the country. Whereas if you come here on a Japanese language school visa, you can stay for about a year or two depending on the visa you have. Another good thing about coming to Japan to do Japanese language school is that you get to experience living in Japan firsthand. You get to find out if you are or aren't compatible with Japan, which is actually a really big thing that a lot of people seem to overlook. So if you come here for Japanese language school, for example, you can come for like one semester, which is like 3 months or 6 months. You get to see if this is a kind of environment you want to live in. I love it, but I've seen a lot of friends, a lot of people, classmates and stuff who really didn't adapt well with it and ended up leaving after a very short period of time. So if you go to Japanese language school, for example, instead of going straight into a university or a trade school or something like that, you will be able to figure things out before you invest too much time, energy, and money into going to whatever school you thought you wanted to go to. So I think a lot of you are probably wondering, how do you find a Japanese language school when you're living in your own country? Now, I had the same kind of issue when I was looking for a school. I started looking for a school when I was in Canada myself. I did a lot of Google searches. I looked at a lot of pamphlets that my Japanese teacher had. I couldn't find something that I thought really worked with me. A lot of the websites I found were either only in Japanese or with very poor English in it, and provided very little information as to how to actually apply or how to get visas or how to do anything. And it was really discouraging for a really long time. But eventually I found one website for the school I ended up going to. It was in English. It had good information and English-speaking staff that I actually ended up calling from Canada. And they helped me out a lot. What was good about the school that I went to is that, I was searching in English and a little bit in Japanese, but they have staff who actually speak English, Japanese, obviously, Korean, and Chinese, and they may have added more on since then. Depending on where you're coming from and what your mother tongue was and what languages you speak, you could actually get information in your own language from a native speaker who worked at the school. So I thought that was very, very good on their side. So I went to a school called KCP International, which was fantastic. But I think there are a lot of other good schools out there as well. All of my foreign friends who live in Japan, they all went to different schools. They all turned out to be able to speak Japanese quite well. So I don't think it necessarily matters what school you go to, but you also have to be motivated and work hard. So another thing you guys are probably wondering is, how do you find a place to live when you're in your own country, moving to a foreign country? And living you have to live somewhere. Alright, so I was really lucky actually, because the school that I was going to provided a dorm that I could live in. And they also had options for homestay and other things like that. Some schools will offer dorms and some schools will not. It really depends on the individual schools, and I can only talk from my own experience. If they do offer some sort of housing, whether it's dorm or homestay, I absolutely recommend doing that, because then it's one less stress when you move initially. Because if you have to look for apartments from halfway across the world, first of all, you can't see them yourself. And second of all, a lot of places will not actually rent to anybody who does not have a long-term visa. You need to have at least 2 years. Well, most contracts for apartments are 2-year contracts. So if you want to live in an apartment in Japan, it might be very difficult for you to apply for that from your own country. There's always guest houses as well. And there's a bunch of different companies actually that do make guest houses. But again, you're faced with the question of, how do I check out this place for real from my own country? And I can tell you from experience that the pictures that they show you on those websites are not exactly what your apartment will look like. The place that I went to had a really good dorm that I lived in for about 9 months. And then I went to a guest house for a while. But there are all kinds of options when you're looking for housing in Japan. But it really depends on your budget. It depends on if you have friends who live in Japan and who can help you out, while you're still in your country. There is no magic solution, but there are ways to do things easier and without as much stress as other ways. and I recommend the less stressful ways. So a lot of people were also asking how I was able to afford coming to Japan. Going to language school is not as expensive as going to universities or bunka or any sort of trade school or anything like that. One semester will, depending on the school, will cost maybe a couple $1,000s US. Plus you have living costs as well. In my case, in university, I worked part-time for over 4 years. I lived with my parents the whole time. I didn't have a car. I didn't really spend very much money. I've always been good at saving money for things like that. I just took all my life savings to Japan. One thing that you might want to look into as well, even for Japanese language school actually, is scholarship. Depending on your country of origin and its relationship to Japan, sometimes you can actually get scholarships to come here for language school. So I remember when I was in language school, they spoke about different kinds of scholarships that were available, usually for other Asian students studying in Japan. So you really have to look and see who is eligible and who isn't eligible, and you might actually be eligible for these. You should know that these things take time. It took me a couple of months to find a school, and it took about 4 or 5 months to actually get my visa after applying to the school. You have to be aware that if you really want to get there for a certain day, that you think ahead and you plan ahead. I didn't do that very well actually. I ended up graduating university and then having to wait about 6 months before I could actually move to Japan. But I mean, like, it all ended up working out quite well. But just make sure that you know that it's not instant. So about 6 months after applying for my visa and everything, my visa came in, I had a place to live, I had a school to go to. So in my next episode, I'll tell you about what it was like when I first got to Japan, trouble I had, good things that happened, all kinds of fun stuff. If you have any questions or comments or anything at all, you can write them in the comment section, or if you want, you can send me messages on my own personal Twitter or Instagram, which will be in the video description below. I really appreciate all the nice comments that you guys sent me, all the questions and everything, so thanks so much, and I look forward to talking to you guys again soon. Bye-bye.